Hey, it's Celebrate Truth. I'm Robbie Davidson. I had a quick update. I know that I'd put this out a couple days ago saying that I was going to be telling the story about flat smacking in first class. So I wanted to get this video out. Sorry for the delay. It was supposed to be out a couple days ago. I got busy with a few things, but you might not know, but I was at Take on the World 2018. It was an amazing conference. Rob Skiba was there, Rick Hummer. There was a lot of amazing people that were there, and we had a really good time. But what was really interesting is on the way back, I had a flight out of Ohio to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Toronto, and then I had a bit of a layover, and then I was basically flying from Toronto to Edmonton. So that was the cool thing is, sometimes when you're flying, it's not really a lot of fun, but you do the best you can, right? That's the whole thing is when you're flying, you kind of have some fun with it. Now I was super tired. I hadn't slept much at the conference, and that was the crazy thing is, you're doing this conference, you're doing all these sessions, you're having a lot of fun, but when you're flying back, you're kind of tired. So, anyways, this was the big deal. Um, on the last flight, I was pretty tired, but I almost missed my flight actually. I had found my gate. I looked, said Edmonton. I went and got a bite to eat. I sat down. I was waiting there. All of a sudden, I was looking at the time and I was like, wait a minute. It's like 20 minutes too. I mean, they must be boarding already. I looked at the sign and all of a sudden it changed. Now, I don't know if I was tired or what's going on, but I'm sure something was happening because you miss your flight. It's a crazy deal, right? So, anyways, all of a sudden I looked up. It said Charlottetown, which was not Edmonton. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna miss my flight. So I'm running through the airport in Toronto, desperately trying to catch my flight. All of a sudden, I hear my name on the intercom. Paging, Mr. Davidson, last call. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss my flight. So this is going to be a long night. This was the last flight leaving Toronto to Edmonton. I was already really tired. I didn't want to stay another night. And again, if you miss your flight, you got to basically, pay for a new one. It's not like it was their mistake. It would have been my mistake. I'm sure I saw the name. To this day, I told my wife, I saw it. I always check the gate. Edmonton, great. I'm at the right gate. It was B41. I couldn't have missed it. Something happened. All of a sudden I looked and it had changed. So anyways, I'm running. I'm getting close to calling my name. All of a sudden I'm pulling out my ticket. I look and I'm like, wait a minute, zone one, first class. When did that happen? Because I didn't have any first class at all on this flight. But it just seemed like whatever reason, maybe they had some empty seats. They bumped me up to first class. So, anyways, I made it. I said, "What happened to the gate?" And they said, "No, nothing ever happened." So I'm not sure. But anyways, I got to the plane. I got on. I'm sitting down, and just okay, great. I made my flight. Awesome. Now I can relax. I can relax a bit. We're good to go. There's nothing going to go wrong whatsoever. So, anyways, I'm about to just probably head off to go to sleep. I'm pretty tired. All of a sudden, I notice a guy next to me sitting in first class. There's just the two of us, and we're sitting there. And I said to him, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, good, good." And he kind of looked tired. And so, anyways, we took off. We were sitting there, and I remember him just kind of sitting there, and he kind of looked young. I think when it turned out, when I finally did ask him how old he was 19. He was flying back from Miami. He had stayed 40 days. I think he was with his cousin. He's going to Nate here in the city. It's a college, studying there. And he had spent pretty much the summer there, and he was coming home. And so, anyways, I was kind of curious, and this is the one thing I always try to do. If you're ever flat smacking someone, it's always a great idea to bring up the moon landing. And I know with all of the studies that were coming out and all of the surveys showing that, millennials, but he wasn't a millennial, he was younger than that. And I said, wait a minute, he's got to be Generation Z, or iGen is what they call them. I don't know if you've gone through the generations, but you've got like iGen, Generation Z, you got Y, you got Generation X. You've got baby boomers, no, the whole thing. But anyways, I said to him, I said, "You're in the Generation Z, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I got a question because I've been kind of traveling around." And I told him kind of what I did. He asked me what I did. I said, "I'm a filmmaker." He says, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Scientism." And he kind of asked what that was about. And I said, "Well, first, let me ask you this question. You're how old are you?" And he said, 19. I said, What do your friends and colleagues and people that you kind of talk to? What do you guys think of the moon landing? Oh, he goes, oh, we think it's a joke. We absolutely think it's a joke. I'm like, really? You think it's a joke? He's like, yeah, absolutely. It's just a complete joke. No, no one was really buying that anymore. I'm like, oh, interesting. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, I'm just kind of curious because I always ask people, where they're at kind of with the moon landing, just to kind of see where you guys are at because, there's a lot more studies coming up that more of the younger generations, they're starting to really doubt the moon landing. Oh, yeah. He goes, come on, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course, right? They didn't go there, of course. It's been almost 50 years. They haven't gone back. He's like, yeah, whatever. So I just left it like that for about 5 minutes. And I said, excuse me, do you mind me asking you just one more question? And he's like, sure. I'm like, what do you guys think? I'm sure you've heard of this whole thing, right? Another kind of, conspiracy or looking into something. Have you heard of this whole flat earth thing? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what do your friends, think of this whole flat earth thing? Oh, he goes, oh, we think it's ridiculous. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, oh, yeah, it's completely ridiculous. I'm like, is there anyone kind of questioning it or looking into it? He's like, no, no, no one that I know of. I mean, we all think it's pretty ridiculous, like flying in space and being a, disc and stuff like that. I'm like, that's interesting. You should say that. I go, what if I told you that, that's not what flat earthers believe? And he goes, what? Really? I'm like, yeah, like I'm sure you've seen the little image and the memes being tossed around, right? Like the little flat Earth, and then you got all the planets, and it looks ridiculous, doesn't it? And I'm like, what if I told you that that's not exactly what flat earthers believe at all? He's like, well, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? Well, here, let me just tell you one thing just before I proceed. What if I told you that you're sitting beside a flat earther right now? He's like, what? You? You're not a flat earther, are you? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, you're heading to Edmonton, right? I said, did you hear about the Flat Earth International Conference that just happened? And he goes, oh, I heard maybe something about that. So, anyways, I had a couple pictures on my phone. I kind of show him just to show who I am. I'm like, actually, I go, we're on a flight here, and I'm sure he got lots of questions because he said like a lot of his friends were, asking these questions. He's like, well, I know we ask these questions all the time, like seasons and how does that work? I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm like, absolutely, right? But what if I told you that, I could make sense of it all for you and a little bit, better understanding that you've had before? And I go, we're sitting on a flight here. We've got like 4 hours. I said, what better time to ask any question you want right now? I mean, you're sitting beside a pretty prominent flat earther. I just put on the Flat Earth International Conference in Edmonton. And, when you land, you can check this out. You can check everything out. And so, anyways, he starts, asking me these questions. And I, first of all, tell him, I'm like, listen, there is no space. What if I was to tell you that the whole thing's been a lie? I go, why do you think that they lied about the moon landing? And he's like, well, I mean, I'm not sure that the Cold War, there was a race on, with Russia. I'm like, what if I told you that basically all of that stuff was set up? What if, the entire reason that they went up was to get that picture? Well, anyways, he starts asking different questions, and I said, now's your time. Ask any questions you want. So, of course, he got into seasons. I said, well, the sun is smaller, closer. He got into Aristophanes. He got into a few of these things, but he was getting really intrigued and he was asking more and more questions. And all of a sudden, it was interesting because we were in first class, and obviously they're giving you, your meals and stuff like that. And there was this cake topper, and that's kind of what it looked like there. It should be on the screen right now. But again, why I put the picture there is because, I'm trying to explain to him the firmament. And then I found out, he's Latino. And when it came down to, him and his beliefs, we started talking about the Bible. We started talking about God. I said, dude, it's right there from the beginning in Genesis. And all of a sudden he's just like, so like the sun, moon, and stars, so they're in. I'm like, yeah. So I took the cake topper right there and just picture that round. I know it's not the best example, but you got to work with what you have, right? I mean, we're on a flight. I didn't have internet. So yeah, I said they're inside that. So think of that cake topper as the firmament, right? The earth was the cake in the bottom, and the sun, moon, and stars were in there. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, he's like, so it's inside. So we're like kind of in this kind of firmament, like the Bible explains. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, look at water. And we were actually flying, and he's kind of looking out the window. He was in the window seat. I was in the aisle seat. And I started talking to him about the properties of water. So again, I'm pouring this out. I'm showing him how you got water, you've got all these sort of thing. It was just hilarious to kind of illustrate it, using Dasani water. I've got a cake topper which came with the meal, and then trying to explain it. And he's like, "Yeah, I get it." He goes, "Okay, okay, I get it." So we're talking some more, and then all of a sudden, he's kind of blown away. He's asked a lot of questions. I told him kind of, I went in through everything. We went through the Bible. We went through the reason why they would do it. He believed in good and evil, God and Satan. That was pretty easy to kind of bring that all together, And meanwhile, while I'm talking to him, he keeps, staring out the window, and he'd be looking up, like he's trying to look up to see how high it is. Well, he's like, "Oh, how high is it?" Well, I'm not sure how high it is, but just maybe approximate, maybe 3,000 miles high, again, give or take. I mean, don't quote me on it, but again, it's very high, but it's not as high as what, I mean, everyone has been telling you, with the billions and billions of galaxies. All this stuff has been a lie to eradicate a creator in people's minds. So, he's staring out the window, he's getting it, he's looking at it, and he really got the firmament with the sun, moon, and stars inside. He's like, "Well, what's outside?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really too sure, but you can, you know, I would say water. I mean, if you read Genesis, it talks about, water, the firmament to divide the waters from the waters. So again, this was the dialogue, and because I started moving it off of conspiratorial into biblical, because again, he started bringing up the Bible, we started talking about it, and he was intrigued, and he's like, "Wow, I got a big story when I land and when I'm talking to my friends, because I know that, this has come up a few times, and thanks for the clarification." I'm like, absolutely. I mean, we're not flying in space. We're not even moving. He's like, we're not moving. I'm like, no, everything out there is moving. We're not. He's like, oh, okay, okay. So he's really getting it. And I'm like, at the end, I'm like, well, what do you think about this so far? He's like, well, he goes, I don't think it's ridiculous, but it's not like I believe it either. And I'm like, okay, so you're just kind of keeping an open mind to it. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much kind of where I'm at. And I'm like, okay. And so, anyways, he kind of seemed tired at this point. We had talked for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours at least. He's like, "Well, I'm going to try to get some rest. Thanks for the conversation, and it was really intriguing. You gave me a lot to think about, but I'm going to have a little nap." I'm like, "Okay, good. Okay, sounds good." It wasn't 10 minutes into him trying to have a nap that all of a sudden he's like, I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden he like wakes up and he kind of tasks me. He says, "Excuse me, do you mind if I ask another question?" I'm like, sure. He's like, what about aliens? So again, we start talking about aliens and start talking about the deception and how the entire thing is fake. Starting looking at it from a biblical point of view that is demonic. Showing him the parallels between poltergeist, haunted houses, and also alien phenomenon. The same type of events are taking place. Even secular researchers are drawing the parallels between demonic activity and paranormal when it comes to ESP and different phenomena that happens around abductions and these sort of things. So while I said, I think that stuff is happening, again, it's a deception. It's not really technological, people from other planets coming to visit us, because again, I showed them the cake topper. That's it. We're inside this place. There are things that are set up to deceive us, but again, that's not the case. So, anyways, we started talking some more. There was no sleep to be had. It was one question after another question after another question, and again, it was just amazing to see someone ask so many questions and be educated, because it wasn't for me to like flat smack him and convince him by the time we landed. But also, I knew that he had a big circle of friends and that he was going to be talking about this. And then when people started ridiculing things like, pancakes flying in space, stuff like this, then we could definitely deal, with that. So that was the big deal when it came to it. So again, when it came to looking at pancakes in space and these type of things, sorry, I guess I didn't have my thing on; it wasn't flipping. There we go. But anyways, so that was kind of the first class seat there. Again, it wasn't showing when I was actually hitting the slides here on it. But anyways, so we're talking, we're getting through. Really, the big thing was educating and letting him know a lot of the things that people were laughing at. Hey, man, us flat earthers, we laugh at the same thing. We think this is ridiculous. Look at this picture. I mean, it's ridiculous. We've seen this so many times circulating in social media, online. But again, it is ridiculous. And it's important that when we're talking to people, it's not so much just even convincing them, but educating them and letting them know what we do and what we don't believe. I think that's an important part of this discussion, because over time, you know, this will help in discussions when people are bringing it up. They're like, oh, look at this. And they're like, actually, no, I was talking to this guy on the plane. He was a flat earther and he said, no one believes that. Oh, really? That's the type of dialogue I think that we need to have because, again, the media run with that. Also, I told him, the Flat Earth Society, he was very familiar with the Flat Earth Society. And, I definitely told him that there's no affiliation. If anything, we think it's set up. Definitely, whether it's a psyop, whether it's to make it look ridiculous, whether it's a joke of an organization, I'm not sure. There's a lot of theories out there, but again, it really comes down to understanding, what we're dealing with. And I said, like, look, I mean, I just did the conference in Edmonton, Alberta. There wasn't one person from the Flat Earth Society, not one person I know, and I rub shoulders with a lot of different people. Do we believe in anything that the Flat Earth Society put out as far as flying pancakes in space. So I got this image up here because before I was flipping through and it wasn't on the right screen. I'm sorry about that. That's the cake topper. Again, I mentioned before the little cake topper talking about the sun, moon, and stars inside the firmament. So again, I was working with what I had, and I was showing, water finds its own level. Also, the idea with the firmament, with the sun, moon, and stars being inside. Outside was water, God was above, and this guy's looking out the window, he's looking up, he's looking around, and it was really starting to have a major effect on him. But anyways, I just wanted to share this video because, like I said, anywhere you're at, it's really easy to flat smack or to really educate people because you just have to have that dialogue and find out where they're at. And me, I'm always big on the moon landing. If you find out where someone is on the moon landing, you've got basically, especially if they don't believe they land on the moon, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to go there. And the reason why I really came out hardcore with the whole flat earth thing was because he lives in my home city. He would have saw all the press, all the news once he landed. He had been in Miami for most of the summer, so he was flying back, and I was just showing it to show credibility and saying, look, you ever want to reach out? We exchange numbers, and you want to talk, let me know. But if anything, I can educate you on, what we think is ridiculous too. But really, I think that he got a good understanding on what we believe when it comes to the scientific proofs, when it comes to the connecting the dots from the conspiratorial and then also from a biblical. So I told him the three groups of people that are coming to this, and I mean it's exploding everywhere. I've done interviews in Russia and South Korea and Brazil and Europe, and I've done them everywhere. And again, this is a phenomenon happening everywhere. This is not just a North America thing, a Europe thing. This is happening everywhere. There are more and more people waking up. The awakening is taking place. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant. The fact is that the numbers of people, the emails I get, the stories I'm hearing, and then again, when you start getting into the athletic world, when you get into Hollywood, there's major, major talk going on. And there's a lot of people that are actually starting to believe, they're starting to research and to look into flat earth theory. The big thing is hopefully in their research they find out, what is real and what is not. Again, the Flat Earth Society and other memes, such as we saw before with, you know, flying pancakes in space look ridiculous. Yeah, of course it's ridiculous because no one believes that. We're not moving. And again, we're not in space. These are the two big things that you've got to educate people on. And whether they think it's funny or laugh at you, that's irrelevant at this point. The fact is, let's get them at least laughing at something that is true of what we believe. Right now, most people are laughing and ridiculing us based on pictures like this. So understand that when you are, your family members or your friends are giving you a hard time or laughing at you or, making you feel small, remember that they're probably thinking this in their head. So again, I think part of the discussion is moving forward and helping them understand what we believe and what we don't believe. That will help us in a very, very big way, explaining exactly, what we believe and what we don't. Because again, when you get into a discussion with someone, they're going to have those questions. And again, when I had the discussion on the plane, he wasn't coming at me, offensively. He was coming at me really curious, wanted to really know how do we account for this? How do we account for seasons? When I started explaining, well, what if hypothetically the sun is smaller and closer? Did you know the Eratosthenes experiment, the same shadows would appear? Did you know that a lot of things work exactly just the right way it would on a globe? So again, just because we've been taught from an early age with our indoctrination, that we're on a spinning ball flying through space, a lot more people are starting to wake up and question that. And there's nothing wrong with having those questions. And that's what I told him. I said, look, in this day and age, your friends should be at a point where they should question things. I mean, if they're questioning the moon landing, why not question everything, especially this something that they're walking on? What if, that's been a lie? How do you know what you know? How can you prove for yourself what you truly know? And I said, is it good enough that if you've been taught or what your parents told you, can you go out and test it for yourself? So it was a really good discussion. We got off the plane and, we exchanged, he had Instagram and we exchanged numbers. So we'll be able to talk more if he has some questions, because I'm sure when he brings this up to a lot of his friends, they're going to have a lot more questions for me, and that's fine. I said, hey, I'm open. We can meet up and we can talk. I want to get a lot more active in my city. There's going to be a meetup happening in Edmonton, Alberta. Just so you know, it's going to be announced really soon. I know Mark Sargent's going to be putting it on his channel. I'll be putting it on my channel, but I'm planning to get a lot more active in my city. So there will be a meetup coming up, I believe, in about 2 weeks in Edmonton, Alberta. So if you're anywhere in Alberta, Calgary, Red Deer, make sure that you keep an eye out. I will be doing an update. It's coming up right away. It's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully I can even bring Javier out, and maybe he wants to come and meet some people. So this is Javier and me after the plane talking, and just coming back from Take on the World. This was just at the baggage claim, getting our luggage. But again, here's a 19-year-old that's going to go off being fully educated on the flat earth theory, on what is true and what is not, telling him that, listen, don't be listening to the Flat Earth Society. Don't be looking at memes with pancakes flying in space. We don't believe it. And I'm telling you right now that it's important to look into these things. And, anywhere you're at, whether you're on a bus, whether you're taking a train, whether you're on a plane, talk to that person next to you. Just find out where they're at. Again, you don't have to come at them offensively. Just start having that dialogue and question things, whether it's scientism. I always bring up scientism, that I'm doing work in scientism. They're like, well, what's scientism? And then I explained the difference between science and scientism. Again, drawing the parallels, when it comes to a lot of scientific research. But again, when you draw the dichotomy between the two, science and scientism, people realize really quickly what you're talking about and say, I'm really against scientism. I mean, I love science. Science is great, because most people you're going to talk to, they're going to love science. They just are. Most people, have this love for science, and science is wonderful. So you've got to kind of come at them as well, loving what true science is, but then show them that a lot of the stuff they're being taught is not true science anymore. It has moved to scientism. It's an agenda. It's a belief. It's one big, massive deception. And on that note, I'm going to be releasing my new book, Scientism Exposed, Hiding the True Creator of Creation, in the next couple of weeks. I'm sorry, guys, there was a bit of a delay on it. I want to make it perfect. So my line editor found a couple of things. We're getting it all done up, and it definitely will be released here in September. I'm looking for the next 2 weeks for it to be released. You can pre-order it on my website, celebratetruth.org. You can pre-order it right now, or you can wait till it comes out. But again, I'm really excited to bring that out. It will be book. Again, it's a combination of Scientism Exposed 1 and 2 documentaries, as well as some other research I've put into it, but I've been working on it for a long time. And I think it's going to help a lot of people kind of approach the topic and bring up flat Earth, but in a way that you're not really mentioning flat Earth. Again, I didn't really mention flat Earth. Well, I mentioned flat Earth probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes into our conversation. But again, because he already was laughing at the moon landing, I thought, I wanted to blow his mind. And again, when you're sitting in a plane, there's nowhere for them to go. So you have a great talk, and we did. And I appreciate Javier for all his insight and letting me know more about his generation, about his friends, but also how to approach them going forward. I think it's an important thing. So, hey, have fun flat smacking. It's a lot of fun. Just create your opportunities, see kind of where someone's at, and you'll know when the right time is. But I'll tell you, it's kind of fun when you can be sitting on a plane and blow someone's mind while they're staring out the window going, whoa, could it be true what this guy's saying beside me? And again, I wasn't even supposed to sit in first class, but I believe nothing happens by chance or by accident. I was destined to be sitting beside Javier, and it was an amazing discussion. So again, not sure how I got first class for that last flight, but they bumped me to it. I sat beside him, and he was flat smacked. And I'll tell you one thing: the stuff that he was thinking, like I said, he couldn't even sleep. He tried to, and he woke up in 10 minutes asking me more questions. So that's when someone's been truly flat smacked, when they can't sleep anymore, because we've all been there. We've all done that. So Anyways, I'm going to put back the 24/7 live stream here in the next 2, 3 minutes. So stay tuned, stick around in the chat. I got more great videos I've been adding. I got some surprises coming up, and I appreciate all of you. So take care, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.